Okay, so Tracy, going into another question, which I think sets us up perfectly for the sort of main thrust of the discussion this afternoon, is all about the interview. And that's typically the first question. So, what we've got up on the screen there is a question. When the interviewer asks the question, tell me more about yourself. What is it expected for us as students to say? So, Tracy, I think that's also going to go on to another question, which I'll put up just now while you're answering that. What if they don't have any experience? So, how do they handle that first question as a student? And are they worried that the employer is looking for actual work experience? How do they handle that?
Okay, so I just wanted to go back to the previous question because I remembered something that I should have said. A lot of recruiters now are using online platforms to help with the volume of students applying. If the platform is set up so that you can't submit your application because maybe you have, obviously they've got to standardize these, so if it comes that you can't submit because there is a failure or something, it's perfectly acceptable that you reach out to the graduate recruiter in the company and just explain you haven't been able to go via the platform, or you're nervous about applying because you have had this one failure, but you'd like them to consider you. So don't be put off by that. All you can do is try. Okay, so then the next question is what probably the most important thing. And when I was making my notes earlier, it's right at the top. It's called your elevator pitch. And if there's any 3 minutes in a meeting or engagement or an interview or at a cocktail party, if there are any 3 minutes that really make a difference, it's in those 3 minutes and I call it 3 minutes because that's kind of a nice rule of thumb. And when you're talking through your entire background, maybe shorter, but not longer. And that is when you are introducing yourself, you're saying enough to get the person you're talking to interested in your story. From then on, they are, set up to ask you things and you can respond. And don't assume that they have read your CV. As an aside, it's really annoying because too many of us recruiters or companies say, we're really serious about recruitment, and then we don't prep sufficiently because we're running from another meeting and we haven't looked at your CV. So don't assume that they have. Give them the benefit of a quick introduction. And by that, I mean, say, for example, I always start an interview by saying, okay, Peter, can you start by talking me through your CV or telling me a bit about your background? Now, Peter could say, okay, would you like me to tell you from when I was born? Do you want to know about my personal background? Do you want to only know from where I started studying, etc.? It's okay to ask that if it's a bit vague. And then what I want you to do is say, talk through your CV, but focus on the highlights they may not have picked up. If you were deputy head boy, if you were part of the provincial soccer team, if you one day you were selected to cook dinner for Oprah. It doesn't matter what it is, somewhere where you were actually recognized and did something that was exciting and an achievement. So often I'll hear somebody saying, okay, so I finished school. During school, I wasn't sure what to study. So the career guidance person did some psychometrics and they saw I was very good at biology, and I then went on to apply, and I've now studied, etc., etc. So they'll be doing that. And then they'll say, and in actual fact, it was the right choice because I came first in class. And I was like, what? And then I'm looking down through the CV and I'm thinking, I didn't see that. And there it is. I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. But it's perfect to remind the person, right? As if you've got to sell yourself. And then about last week, I was doing an interview prep with somebody. They were doing the interview the next day. So we were doing a mock interview. And I said, okay, 3 minutes. Give me a summary of your background. And he got so caught up in the early stages of saying, you know what, we grew up here and it was hard. I had to go and stay with my gogo, and my mom went to work. And it was an interesting story. I personally was loving it. But when the 3 minutes came up, it's like I'd had more of a life story than a marketing pitch. And I said, if you've got to encourage someone to hire you, you've got to sell yourself like nobody else can. You're not boasting. Just say everything amazing about yourself that you possibly can, and then it's up to them, right?
Yeah. Tracy, great insights there, and allow me maybe just to add a few of my own. And interestingly enough, I was conducting 4 back-to-back interviews yesterday for some senior roles in the bank. And it's interesting when I, look at the discussion that we've had now about tell us about yourself. I actually felt like I was in the interview because I had a sourcing recruiter. So there was 3 of us. There was sourcing recruiter, I'm the hiring manager, and then obviously the candidate. So the recruiter sort of starts off the interview by saying, okay, well, Peter is going to tell him about yourself, and then you're going to tell, us about yourself. So I actually started answering that exact same question as if I felt like I was being interviewed by the candidate. And I think that's nice just to put the candidate at ease, because I almost start as if I'm the candidate and they're examining my CV almost. So I've had lots of practice with, my elevator pitch. So that's one observation. Just being the hiring manager, often you'll get asked to introduce yourself. And that could be a question you want to ask later on in the interviews. Maybe just, tell me a bit about yourself, whatever the case would be. So that was the first thing. So I've had lots of practice in my elevator pitch. The second thing is, of the 4 people, the one just went on too long with this question. And exactly like you said, Tracy, they got hung up on some aspect of their CV. And then I started to lose focus, and, it took up too much time of the interview. So you have to be strict. And just my last advice would be focus on the last few years, because earlier than that, people are going to recognize, and look, again, I know that, bulk of us here are students, etc. But as you build up experience, try and focus that elevator pitch on the most recent time in your career. But I guess the focus today is if you don't have experience, and that's what we must help students with.